Greetings, online students. I've been just a little bit under the weather, but I will do the best I can with this first part of concepts and theories and recording of it. The first part of concepts and theories is over the first 5 chapters in your Pete's book. The first 4 chapters I want you to read over. I have posted a PowerPoint that has note pages to it. If you know those note pages, then you will be okay for the test. There are not very many questions over chapters 1, 2, 3, or 4. On the other hand, chapter 5, concepts and theories of growth and development, there are a lot of questions. For the concepts and theories section, make sure you know chapter 5 well and that you skim 1 through 4. Okay? There's also a quiz that will open up and start. These are the quizzes that you have 2 chances to take it, and that the grammar and capitalization, punctuation, all that counts. So make sure that you do well. They are not timed. You can use your book for them. They are not meant to be hard questions. They're meant for you to get in the chapter, start reading and looking at it. So be sure to do that. This one will be, first quiz will be over chapter 5, so you will have to study and read it very carefully. So I will be doing this in 2 parts because there is a lot to it. So part 1, we'll get started. All right. And again, I apologize now for my voice. I'm actually almost screaming. So growth and development concepts. Some of you may find this boring. Some of you find it very dry material. There are a lot of facts, but it's a lot of need to know things. The best warning I can give you is don't think of your own children when you're completing an exam, because it will mess you up. It's not when your children's first tooth come in or when your child's average age they started crawling. It's the average age nationally. So just be very careful about doing that. All right, let's get started. Concepts of growth and development. Why is it important to study growth and development? Well, number 1, don't we want to be able to promote optimal health and development of the child and the family? Absolutely. So when we perform thorough pediatric assessments and we identify children who demonstrate slow or abnormal development, we can pick up on that very quickly. So number 1 is to be able to promote optimal health and development. Number 2, to form a basis for nursing interventions to meet the complex needs of the developing child. To form a basis for nursing interventions to meet the complex needs of the developing child, such as referring children for evaluations, for rehab, for teaching, education. So these are the 2 main reasons it's important to study growth and development. Looking at definitions of terms, the difference between growth and development, even though the 2 terms are often used interchangeably, they are very distinct definitions and meaning. So they are related, they can be used simultaneously, they're ongoing, but they are different. So think about growth, an increase in the number and size of cells. So this means usually physical growth. Usually we can measure this in weight, and it can be measured very easily and accurately. Whereas development is a change from a lower to a more advanced stage of complexity. For example, barely sitting to walking and crawling, okay? So it makes a big difference, okay? Also, the term maturation. This means to ripen. It's an increase in competence and adaptability, and it's functioning at higher levels. So we have a maturation of the central nervous system and muscular systems that are necessary before a child can toilet train, before they can ride a bike. They have to have certain muscular systems and nervous systems that have matured. There are 4 developmental age periods. There is infancy, early childhood, middle childhood, and later childhood. Now, Miss Enlows will cover all the prenatal stuff in her OB content. So if you look on page 65 of your book, it gives you a big overview of these periods, and we'll go over them. In infancy, only up to their first birthday, so birth to 1 year, is the day from birth to 12 months, or the day they turn After they turn 1, they move to the next stage. It's broken down into neonatal, birth to 28 days, which Miss Enlows mainly covers, and then infancy, which is 1 to 12 months, which is where I pick up with peds. So think about the characteristics of this period. If you think about infancy, excuse me, it's a period of rapid motor, cognitive, and social development. During infancy, the foundations for future relationships are laid, especially when it comes to the concept of trust. Early childhood, again, the day they turn 1, they move to the early childhood stage, 1 to 6. 1 to 3 is known as toddlers. 3 to 6 is known as preschoolers. So the day they turn 3, they become a preschooler. So what are the characteristics of this period? Wow, that's all I know to say. Intense activity, intense discovery. It's motor development advancing. Language, social relationships are beginning. They're beginning to gain self-control and mastery. Awareness of independence and dependence. And they also say this is the time when they actually begin to develop a self-concept. So lots of stuff going on during this period. Now, again, a lot of this is on your book, page 65, in that chart, or in that box, 5-1, developmental age period. Middle childhood. Now, middle childhood is 6 to 12, also known as school age. So if you think about the characteristics of this stage, it's a period of development where they're directed away from their family and now more towards their peers. There's a steady advancement in the physical, mental, and social development. Social cooperation and early moral development take on more importance. And it's a critical period for the development of a self-concept. Later childhood, the final stage, is 12 to 18. Some say 19. The poor 19-year-olds are kind of in the middle of the road. We're not sure where to put them. Prepubertal is 10 to 13. Adolescence is 13 to 18, with, again, some saying 19. So what are the characteristics of this period? Wow. Period of rapid maturation and change. They're transitioning and beginning the onset of puberty into adult world, and so really they're somewhere in between childhood and adulthood. They're redefining their self-concept. They're internalizing things. They're trying to develop their own value and belief system. And to be real honest, it's a second toddlerhood. All you got to do is change the me to I. Okay? There's 2 methods of studying growth and development. There's cross-sectional and longitudinal. Now, if you think about when you're looking at the definition, cross-sectional being your most common, is when you observe a class of students at a certain time or point, and then that provides you with norms. So, example, you go into a group of 4-year-olds and you observe their average height, weight, and motor ability. That would be cross-sectional because it's giving you expected achievements of children at that age, at that stage. Now, longitudinal studies provide us with trends and rates, and they're conducted not just in one time frame, but over a period of years. So an example of a longitudinal study would be like the long-term effects of experiences, like prolonged illnesses or chronic illnesses on a family, parental rejection, and how it affects growth and development. They would study that child over several years. Directional trends are on page 65 and 66 in your book. There's 2 main ones. Number 1, cephalocaudal, which simply means head to toe or head to tail. The proximal distal means innermost to outermost or near to far. So examples of cephalocaudal would be the fetal head develops before the trunk, the arms before the legs. Examples of proximal distal would be shoulder control precedes mastery of your hands. So it will be again going from near to far. One of the big things you want to remember when we're studying growth and development is that each child will grow at his or her own pace. Now, there's been a documented trend in the rate and age of maturation. Children are maturing earlier and becoming larger at each age group. So why are they saying this? Well, a lot of the research actually points to that we are getting better prenatal care. Now, there's also some research out there being done about things like the additives, such as growth hormone in our chicken, that's also speeded up the growth process. So, what factors affect growth and development? Genetics, that would be nature. Environment, that would be nurture. Prenatal problems or prenatal care, or all the above. And the answer is all the above. Genetics, we have a certain makeup that's going to affect our growth and development. Environment, we have things anywhere from socioeconomic influences to family structures to parental attitudes about child rearing and philosophies. Prenatal care varies from family to family. So again, it could be all of the above. Physical development, external proportions. Again, we said it was cephalocaudal, head to toe or head to tail. Trend of growth and development that's most evident in total body growth. Now, you do need to remember these. In the fetus, the head is the fastest growing part. In infancy, the trunk predominates in growth. In toddlerhood and childhood, the leg growth predominates. And then in adolescence, trunk elongates again. So when we think about changes in biological growth and development, they are not uniform. They're characteristic by cycles of acceleration and then slow development, varying from organ to organ and system to system. The most prominent feature of childhood and adolescence is physical growth. So as the head gets smaller, the trunk and the legs grow more rapidly. Thank goodness. Our head don't just keep getting bigger and bigger. Physique, body form, build, and shape. They came out with a classification system by Sheldon, who says there's 3 basic types, and he has actually went back and did some more work on this classification system. But the basics is endomorphics, mesomorphics, and ectomorphics. Endos are your soft round folks with those short fat builds we think of. The mesos are your well-developed, well-muscled, thick chest, broad-shouldered folks. And then your ectos are your tall, thin people. Shouldn't be think people, should be thin people. Your ectos are your tall, thin persons. So you can see here that all of us knows that some people don't fit in just one of those categories. So they have updated that system. Facial proportions in infancy and early childhood, the face is smallest in relation to the skull. And if you think about the size and development of brain growth, it's got a lot of growing to do in that first year. At 25, the brain at 25% of adult size at birth. But look by the end of 1 year, 66%. And by the 5th year, 90%. By age 15, 98%. So it's downhill thereafter. Growth in height. Linear growth occurs as a result of skeletal growth and is really considered the stable measurement of general growth. The maximum growth in legs occurs before birth. Usually it's 1 inch or 2.5 centimeters monthly for the first 6 months and 1/2 inch or 1.25 centimeters for 6 months to 1 year. So if you think about that, 6 inches for the first 6 months, right? 1 inch for every month for the first 6 months. And then it would be 3 inches for the next 6 months or 1/2 inch for the next 6 months. So when you add that together, they should grow about 9 inches in the first year. Okay, and that's minimal. So close to a foot. The height at 2 years is approximately half the adult height. I didn't believe that for a long time. There's a nursing tip on page 67, but it really does hold pretty true. When your child turns 2, if you double that height, that's about how tall they will be as an adult. All right. By age 4, the birth length is actually doubled. So how do we measure an infant? Most of the time we should measure with measuring boards. Those are most ideal. I will tell you, in most places we put them on a sheet, we spread them out, we mark their heels, and we mark where their crown of their skull's at. What's important is how you measure, and that you do measure from crown to heel, okay, with the legs flat. So again, your measuring board is actually your best thing, but if you don't have one, then you do have to make sure that they're flat when you're measuring their crown to their heel. Weight, the average weight of a 7 to 7.5 is 7 to 7.5 pounds. And I really think we will see when the new edition of the PEDS book comes out that go up a little bit. Birth weight doubles by 6 months, anywhere from 4 to 7, but by 6 months they should really have doubled their birth weight. By 2 to 2.5, the birth weight quadruples. Birth weight should triple by age 12 months, doubles at 6, triples at 12, doubles at 6, triples at 12. From 3 years until the adolescent growth spurt, yearly weight gain of 4.4 to 6 pounds. You can say about 4 pounds to 6 pounds. So from 3 years to adolescence, every year they should gain about 4 to 6 pounds. What are the guidelines for weighing a child? Really, we don't want them to have any clothes on when you weigh them. You want to do it about the same time every day and make sure that you're documenting you're doing that. All right, growth charts, activity. It says, can you think of any problems with routine growth charts? Well, the problem is that there's different cultural variations, cultural differences. One set of growth charts for all children. African Americans, for example, have lower birth weights a lot of times, so you cannot just go by that. Asians overall have a shorter stature, so really they're going to look like they're falling off in the growth chart. Premature infants as well may not fit into the perfect realm of what we consider our growth charts. Is there some chart specific to developmental delays process? And the answer is yes. Google, when you have some time, growth charts for children with Down syndrome, for example. There is a particular chart for them. Complete the plotting activity that's posted in Nursing Theory Week 3 content modules, concepts, and theories. It is a little thing over Tommy Thumb. I give you the birth weight, what he does at 6 months and 12-month checkup, the birth length, and then at 6 months and 12 months. You should be within plus or minus 5 percentile rank to get it correct. So if you go and you download that growth chart, I gave you a link, a PDF link to the CDC's growth charts. You're going to see on one side it says length, and on the very top of the other side it says length. On the bottom it says weight, and on the other side it says weight. If you look at the very bottom and the very top, it's broken into your age groups: birth, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and then at the bottom it goes up there a little bit: 12 months, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30, 33, and 36 months. So up to 36 months, we should be plotting on growth charts. It should be at least the length and the weight on your growth chart. Some will also do circumference on theirs. If you're looking down at the bottom, we will work through the first one just so you will kind of know how to do it. So when Tommy Thumb comes in, Tommy Thumb's birth weight is 7 pounds. If you look there in the weight, down at the bottom, in the first column is pounds, in the second column is kilograms. I gave you the weight in pounds, so you would go by the first column. The 7 is the dark line in between the 6 and the 8. The long line in between each one of those are halves. So 7 pounds, so you would and find where it says 7 pounds, and then you would come across to where it says birth, and it's 7 pounds, and you would mark it, okay? Then if you follow, once you do that and you mark it, then you follow that line up, and if you follow that line up, then once you take that dot, then you take your pencil or your pen and you keep following that curved line, and see where it leads to percentiles. And in this case, you should have got 25th percentile, and that's what you would record. Now, when you're looking at, excuse me, the birth length was 20 inches. So go up to the top, and it gives you inches and centimeters. So I would go to 20. And I would come across to where it says birth, which is your first dark line there, and I would draw a line. And then if I follow that all the way up, I should come really close to the 50th percentile. So that's how you do that. So I want you to do the rest of them and send me your answers, and we'll see how you're doing. Alteration in water content. Changes are reflected in the amount of bone, muscle, and fat as growth occurs. The percentage of total body water, we have intracellular and extracellular fluid compartments, and we all know that. The extracellular fluid compartment for a child is at 40% at birth, and that means outside the cell, is where most of their fluid is, and that's fluid that's easily lost. By age 2, the extracellular fluids only accounts for about 25%, and then 20% at maturity. So they have double the amount of fluid in their extracellular fluid compartment as they are getting older. Now, what's the significance of that? At birth. The significance of that is they can become dehydrated very easily. If 40% of their fluid is in the extracellular fluid compartment outside the cell where it's more easily lost, then any kind of vomiting, any kind of diarrhea, any kind of temperature increase is very significant with a child. Temperature and metabolism. Metabolism, your basal metabolic rate. This is the minimal energy expended to maintain body processes. Metabolic needs vary among individuals and within each individual. It is highest in the newborn. It's closely related to the proportion of surface area to body mass, which changes as the body increases in size. It decreases with age, with being higher in boys than in girls. There's more on this on page 69 in your book if you would like to read up on it. So when we think about temperature, it reflects our BMR. Infants and young children we know are susceptible to temperature fluctuations anyways, but especially overheating. And in fact, each degree of fever increases the BMR by 10% with a corresponding increase then in caloric and fluid requirements. So if you have a child who has a high fever, for every degree above what it's supposed to be, it's going to increase their need for fluids and caloric and fluid requirements by 10%. Sleep and rest. We know sleep is a protective function in all organisms. The length of time spent in sleep decreases throughout childhood, and we know as you get adulthood, it decreases even more. The sleep of a newborn, if you think about it, is about 50% in what we call the REM sleep. That's the rapid eye movement. Whereas the older child only has 20% in the rapid eye movement sleep. So as we get older, we don't have as much in the rapid eye. Now, the reason I tell you this is because a lot of parents will see their child jerking a lot and rapid eye movement when they're little, and that is normal. That's normal for them to have the irregular pulse and respirations, their body to have a lot of movement. Sometimes your younger adolescents who's had kids may mistake that for seizure activity, so you want to make sure they know that. Also, quiet sleep, that is characterized by very regular breathing and body and eye movements would be absent. Talking about the lymphoidal tissues, these are your lymph nodes, your tonsils, your thymus, your spleen, your adenoids, things like that. These follow a very distinctive growth pattern, unlike any of your other body systems. And the reason why is because if you think about a child, as they are getting older and older, they are exposed to so many different microorganisms, and their immunity starts to develop antibodies against it. So it probably reflects the repeated exposure to new infectious agents. The repeated exposure to new infectious agents. You will see children who have enlarged nodes, and a lot of times they've even calcified. You want to make sure you know about that before you actually consider that they need referrals, because sometimes it is normal for some children to have lymph nodes that are permanently in their neck that have calcified if they had repeated infections. They are well developed at birth. They reach adult size already by age 6. So by age 6, they're at 100%. By age 12, they've almost twice the size of the adult. There's a good photo, if you want to look at it, on page 67 in your book that goes over this. And then it's followed by a very rapid decline to adult size by the end of adolescence. So by the end of adolescence, you've been exposed to a lot of stuff, but then it goes back down to normal adult size. Adipose tissue, normal fat distribution during childhood follows a very distinctive pattern. In fact, rapid accumulations from the 28th week gestation to the first 6 months. And then there's a decline until about age 6 to 8, and that's when all fat begins to accumulate. There's little difference in fat accumulation and distribution in boys and girls until puberty. Then all poor fat breaks loose on those poor girls. Fast facts you need to know about the teeth. The age of the tooth eruption is variable, but the order of their appearance is usually fairly regular and predictable. The teeth begin to erupt at about age 6 months, but calcification is not complete until sometime during the 3rd year. We all know that the first primary teeth are usually the lower central incisors at age 6 to 8 months, but that can vary anywhere from 4 to 12. The first permanent teeth to erupt is at age 6 years, and most of the universal consistent tooth eruption is actually the 6-year molar. Almost everybody, the day they turn 6, that 6-year molar pops in. Now, what if you got your teeth and you got your upper central incisors first? Does that mean you're abnormal? No. It just, you will get your lower ones in time. It just means you have switched. But no, it does not mean anything's wrong. Motor development, the ability to perform motor functions, follows a very predictable pattern. We go from very reflexive movements, that's things like sitting, crawling, reaching, just very reflexive things in infancy, to more general fundamental skills, that would be common to children, and that would be things like running, jumping, catching, throwing. So first I have to learn to sit and crawl and reach before I can run, jump, and crawl, catch. Then very specific skills, and these are developed during your later childhood. Now we develop it and we can actually play chase. We can play Red Rover. We can play track and field events. We put those generalized fundamental skills into very specific skills. And then last but not least, specialized skills. We may end up being, famous swimmers or distance runners if we really acquire a taste for the specific skills. So that takes us to the overview of the theorist, and that's where we will start part 2. If you have any questions or concerns, let me know. Thank you very much.